Hey, before we get started with the first discussion, kind of talk back of episodes 1 and 2 of Unsleeping City Season 2, want to address the fact that during our Conversation of Candy series, we made some mistakes and took some liberties that we should not have. What we did was we used a number of fan arts and included those in the kind of slideshows of the episodes here for YouTube. And while we did caption the artist, we didn't gain advance permission to use their art, and that was unacceptable. And we do apologize for that. We have been working on fixing those, and most of those episodes should be up only with art included visibly from artists who granted us permission, and the appropriate links below in the description, not just images with their usernames of whatever social media they posted to. Their art is part of the experience of Dimension 20. It is part of my experience as a fan of it, and it absolutely helps during these times of quarantine and in between the episodes to put smiles on our faces. And we should have gotten advance permission beforehand. We didn't, and we appreciate the grace, patience, and friendliness of every fan artist that has welcomed us to use it with tagging going forward and in previous episodes. Thank you very much. And now let's get started with our conversation on Unsleeping City Season 2, Episodes 1 and 2.
All right, we're recording.
It's been a long time. It's been a while.
It's been a hot minute. There's been a whole side story since we last talked.
Since you and I last said a single word to each other.
Yeah. Since last we spoke a single sentence.
It's been silence in this house. So we're back. We're back in my favorite of the Dimension 20 season setting locations, Unsleeping City. I don't know. You normally take the notes. You normally guide the conversation. I'm going to let you continue. That'll be a continuing through line plot of this series.
So I thought it was really cool, just right out the gate, have Lou role-playing the scene of Kingston getting the subway token and becoming the Vox Populi. Like, it was this really nice moment that it kind of explained what happened to the Dragon of Bleecker Street. That's something I was always a little curious about during the Unsleeping City 1, because he never really came up as a potential ally. And so having it be like, okay, this dragon was at the end of his life back then.
Yeah.
So he doesn't exist anymore to be a potential ally. Because he didn't like really come up when they were talking about like the mummy incident with Siobhan and Lou in the past. So
yeah, I of course liked it because it did the same thing that Brandon got to immediately pull the same trigger he pulled in season 1. Which is, surprise, Lou, you have to play a historical scene. And of course, Lou Wilson was up for the task. Kingston Brown is a character he very comfortably slides into. And so it was cool, and it was a great way.
It's cute how clear of an idea he has of Kingston Brown in his head. Like, hairstyle, everything.
Hairstyle, yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the intro and just how much sweetness there was, especially between like Ricky and Kingston's mornings. Especially, Ricky's always like our nice big sweetheart golden retriever boy, but especially for Kingston having to be able to see that side and see that he got to be there when that was so absent. Like, he had the city, but he didn't have personal sweetness in the same way. It was very cute to get to see these scenes of like Ricky and Esther and Kingston and
so and this requires me to be recalling the introductions of Kingston in both seasons. but there's a fun dichotomy there. Ricky is very consistently, because Ricky's pretty much always in a good place. So it's nice to see Ricky in that situation, to see the good dog get adopted, if you will. But with Kingston, I loved it because the reason Kingston's introduction in season 1 of Unsleeping City is so warm and brings a smile to your face is that you don't spend any time. Kingston's apartment is not a place that you spend time in. You spend time at his job, at the corner store.
Yeah, the only time that you spend time with him there is when he's finally let Pete in there.
Exactly. And so the juxtaposition of keeping that same warm, sort of easy storytelling. Here's a man who's in a control of the life that he's deliberately trying to make for himself, setting the scene, whether or not that's actually true over the whole of the season. And certainly not true in the moments, but moments that we get to see in Unsleeping City, of the moments of conflict. But it very much feels like it's the same comfortable Kingston, but now we get to see him in his home instead of him being most comfortable out of his home. I don't think that was a very heavily weighed in theme in the first season. It wasn't like it was like, this is an important plot device we're going to use. But I think that juxtaposing it from the opening, whether that was delivered or not, really sends the message of how much has changed for how much Kingston's life is about his life now, as much as it is about the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see other things from Ricky's morning. His deep, like the description of how deeply he sleeps makes me intensely jealous. And it was really cute. Esther's mom, Gabriella, trying to get Ricky ring shopping. And Ricky's just like constantly letting that stuff slide over his head. I also loved John Cubed as a nickname for the Johns when Ricky ran into them.
Ricky's a very interesting himbo.
Just a sweetie.
In the way that, Zach's doing a great job of making sure never to lean too comfortably on any given one stereotype of the beautiful, muscly, dumb, kind guy. He's not really broy. Mm-hmm. Like, he is a little bit.
It's like, he works out and loves his boys, but it's not like a bro where that's what defines them.
And it's kind of cool that they take him into working at the community, at the shelter.
So that was what he said at the end of last season.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
that's
nice
where he goes.
That.
It's nice that continues, because it's really like, this character should be one note because he is an inch deep as a character as far as like how his brain works. But instead, Zach figures out it's like, no, that just means
this is a three-dimensional person.
Yeah, they're a person. Like, it means that they change jobs and they can find fulfillment in multiple places in multiple ways. And I really like that. And so I think Zach does a good job at playing him 3 dimensions, even if he's a 3-dimensional, coaster as far as his depth.
Yeah, it was. You know how much I deeply love Allie as a player, and so it was very awesome to see Pete again. That just adorable conversation that Pete had with the kid, which gave me many feelings. Everybody's talked about this. The Dimension 20's brought it up multiple times as well. But I'm very glad that they reached out to sensitivity consultants on addiction and recovery to kind of come up with a system. It's like, knowing both people who struggled with addiction and eventually, people who struggled with it and lost their lives, as opposed to people who, continue their path to stay sober and work at that, with all, everything that comes with that road. I'm interested to see how it's going to be included as a mechanic while staying respectful. So far, we've only seen, like a couple roles.
Mm-hmm. A couple. They seem to have a list of triggers.
Yeah, so just recently, I don't know if they posted it elsewhere, but on their Discord, they shared a Google Doc of the system.
Yeah.
So anyone can look at and read that. As well as something I need to read up on is that some of the consultants they worked with did a Q&A on the Discord that I haven't had the time to go. There's lots of messages in the channel. It was back on the 12th, and so there's been a lot of messages since. Yeah. I got like 2 days up and was like, I'll come back to this later, and forgot. In incorporating the system, it's cool to have both Pete and Sophia at different places in their sobriety journey. Mm-hmm. And that kind of moves into after Pete seeing Sophia at her new place above Spaghetti's, living with her mom.
Yeah, that was a great,
just catfishing people left and right, using her high school picture. Just super gross, Mom.
There was a lot of fun there. That was a great scene between Emily and Brennan as the comedic beats for an adult daughter and mother combo.
Oh, that was adorable. I have a note here that since we're doing a combined episode 1 and 2, we'll get to, but I'm like right under that is, wonder if Dale ever fought his way out again, and that's contributing to Sophie holding back from new relationships. Well, now we know the answer to that. And then, there's, she and her mom fight a little bit about this intrusion in relationships in general, and we get a little bit of La Grangata as she's driving to go kick some butt for the night. Let's see. Yeah, so
new characters.
Yeah, I'm really happy that someone other than Murph had a new character this season. I think it was good that it wasn't just like, and one person plays a new person coming into the group.
It was a good choice, and Siobhan's a good choice for it since.
Rowan had a pretty complete story. Yeah. I mean, she regenerated, accomplished creating a kingdom, and then has kind of a realm and has that to deal with. Has a different story to be on.
Rowan's also a much older character, ancient character, and it's almost an obvious, it's cool because by default the regeneration implies it's you have to kind of discover how you're different. It's very Doctor Who, right? Mm-hmm. How are you different? What's different about you? And so that would have been really easy to do, but at the same time it would have rehashed a lot of things because of the nature of the character's origin, and I think it was a much more interesting idea to just be I'm playing someone different.
Yeah, and then they would have to more directly address kind of Pete and Rowan, which as is was just kind of nice to be yep, I fucked that up.
Mm-hmm. It's very Pete.
But yeah, so I really love the idea of Anastasia, of Iga. I'm really interested to see how she's role played, and how having a full family plays into things. Because at this point, episode 1 and 2, next episode's the first actual fight.
Yeah.
And so I'm really interested to see how that's going to affect her, what that means for her as someone who purposely has kept themselves out of the Unsleeping City because that shit's dangerous.
Yeah, and they're just I'm going to use little pieces to my advantage. And I don't mind a certain level of danger, obviously, as a laundering facility. What was his name? The criminal that entered during the...
bringing back Yagdash.
Yagdash.
Bringing Yagdash back.
Yagdash, so good. What a great...
Just the line from Siobhan. When the sign is popping, you don't come hopping.
I just love this sort of generic Eastern European, like it's a trope they didn't hit last season on Unsleeping City. It's sort of like the big, like, identifiable European small communities and immigrant status sort of thing that still very much exists in northeastern United States and New York City specifically, versus, say, out here on the West Coast where we are, where it exists, but it's pretty watered down. And so there's not a long history of there being large, like, Polish or German or Romanian communities like there are. And so it's nice to see that. And Siobhan plays her as such a hilariously pragmatic, stoic is the wrong word, but like limited emotional expressions. Sort of, but like, just very practical.
Very matter of fact.
Yeah, very,
like, not unemotional about it.
But like, yeah, just very, very, very.
It's like, what's the thing? Oh goodness! Well, this is what we do.
I guess this is the thing.
Yeah. Let's see what else. I want to try borscht bites really bad. Those sound delicious.
Yeah, that little conversation with the daughter and the friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from the daughter too, being like, "Can you make them tomorrow?" Yeah. Like, that was very sweet.
It was very nice. It's like, I don't hate this. I'm not there. I'm just I have a lot of shame as a teenager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just having her, meet up with Sophia as, their fortune teller, psychic.
So
it's a nice way to just fold her in.
Sophia knows people with fucking magic and goes to a fortune teller. Now, that she knows is aware of the Unsleeping City. Mm. But it's like, why would you? Okay.
Well, fuck, magic is real, so...
So why not? I love it.
The gladiator setup's just excellent. Gladiator blew offhandedly later when he meets up with Pete, throwing out Gladiator Prime.
Yeah,
I don't think that was planned from Brennan's reaction. It was like, yeah.
It was just Lou picking up the note and being like, "All right, we'll run with this whole Gladiator comparison." Mm-hmm. Because we're a YouTube channel. Because we're going to YouTube, by the way. Fuck you, Amazon. There you go. There it is.
No, I liked that it also wasn't just like, here's the lore dump. In the last 3 years, all this stuff happened. It was naturally seeded throughout the episode. Mm-hmm. The mall closing, later Kingston reaching out to his friend whose shop had closed and finding out they'd been bought out.
Yeah, it's like gladiators. It's funny how this parallels reality. Mm-hmm. In the way that there was almost a large campus facility of Amazon in New York.
Well, and then integrating the concept of the company store is the other thing that Brennan made sure to kind of slide in there. They're like, we'll work for credit.
And then you can get things at that, which is not new. For those that are young and maybe not just young, but for those that are unstudied in American corporate history during the industrial age, a little lesson that might get cut out. I don't know. I like this. I like this a lot. Almost to the 100-year mark. You could go back 100 years from right now to New York and find large corporate entities that are part of the founding backbone of the U.S. Modern industrial
as well
complex.
As the mining industry, correct?
Yeah, certainly mining industry. Carnegie Steel did this. Ford Manufacturing did this. Everything did this, and it was the company store is something there. It used to not be very regulated on how you paid your people, and so a lot of companies would set up general stores, small communities, and stuff like that, and allow you to either buy goods at a quote-unquote discount or just pay you in mostly credits for your necessaries, and then you get a little bit of money extra, or just pay you in credits to the company store. They would also provide housing sometimes. They would provide, so if you didn't have a family or anything, and you were just a single person, you were sleeping there, but they would charge you for that housing. They'd charge you for the water usage. They'd charge you for kitchen usage. They'd hit you every which way on microtransactions. And in the end, you'd just be in debt to the company you would work for. And it sounds like an episode of Black Mirror because it is. But it was quite actually reality in late 19th, early 20th century United States, especially in the Northeast and New York included. So I love that they grabbed this because I'm big history buff in places like this. And the fact that they're calling out the modern representation of that, very satisfying.
Oh, yeah. Next up, we meet Cody, our mall goth without a mall.
I believe his name is Night Angel, if I recall correctly.
Oh, God, just... Cody is a goddamn gift this season. Everyone's reaction to Murph's edgelord character is just the best thing every goddamn time. Even the intro music, that whatever like new metal-y, the shit they start playing behind when Cody starts doing something.
Yep. Here's why I love Cody. Number one is because if you checked in on a 19-year-old version of me, I was not many degrees away from Cody. I wasn't a mall goth. I wasn't much of a mall person. Not that I didn't own clothes from Hot Topic. But I wasn't a mall goth, but definitely was like a burgeoning sword guy. Definitely was a big fan for periods of my teenagehood in all things quote unquote occult and demonic. Yeah, you're right. Cody as a character is real fun, and Murph is playing him real well. But like half of why he's such a joy to watch, or to have as part of this, is just watching the rest of this adult ass cast along with
watching Zach and Lou just like crumple into themselves periodically.
And, almost every time Cody has any sort of significant scene time, no one knows how to deal with it because everyone's known this kid or was this kid. Just
peals of laughter.
Yeah.
Oh God, just the line. You can never just freak out with these weapons.
Yeah. The fact that
the Buster sword.
That he's got a Buster sword.
That he's a sword guy. I'll tell you, one of my brothers is a sword guy.
Yeah.
You've seen the walls in my family's house. Arguably, my dad's kind of a sword guy.
Your dad's pretty much a sword guy.
Like, it runs thick in my blood.
Like I said, I was almost a sword guy. But yeah, he's got like stuff from the House of Cutlery, or like those early fandom pre-internet sword places in the mall. I love that he's always smoking a cigarette.
Oh God, when Emily, like when they were talking about like when they first mentioned that and Emily's like a tiny cigarette, the first thing that snapped into my head is those like Misty Slims. Those like teeny thin cigarettes. And so that, even though he immediately followed it up with what's more disgusting, is that they're just like butts he found, that's still half the time in my head. I just see those,
it's just, he just screams the type of character that would explain to me again and again why the Matrix soundtrack is the greatest film soundtrack of all time. And I love it because it's so Murph as a character or as a player to make. Only Murph could have made this character and played him in a campaign. Because for those that listen to NADPOD, Murph is the master of taking shitbag characters and just making them continue to live and be a character that you enjoy following. And that's what he's done. He's taken a character that would be one of his low status villain type of characters and made him a protagonist for Dimension 20. And I love it.
Max. Then we get to see Kingston and Pete hanging out for the first time in a few months.
That was some real ass emotion.
Yeah, it was really, really sweet to see their continued friendship. Very adorable to see Bruce the Bulldog, and made me both very happy and very sad when Murph did the hairy baby dance. And that's when when Pete told Kingston how things went with Rowan.
Allie has made Pete such a dork. Like, Pete was always awkward. Like, that was big. Pete had big awkward vibes.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that they kind of addressed in the first season that I liked. Was like, as he started kind of cleaning up near the end, it's like, oh, thought he was a weird guy because the drugs. He's just a weird guy.
He's just a weird guy, and he's just like a dork.
After they get some papooses and catch up, Pete has his first sobriety trigger, finding out that Priya is engaged to what is, of course, some sort of social media influencer. like outdoorsman, but not really. Like, enough for branding. I'm getting real worried about Kingston between this first and second episode, only because there's two things. That weird "what if anything stays" vision, like when he was texting his friend and like saw that for a moment and was like, oh, didn't actually see that. And then in the second episode, when he has like some stabbing pain and just tries to hide it, and the only person who managed to perceive it was Pete. It was like, I'll check with him later on that. And I was like, please, Pete, remember to check with him later.
Please. They're beginning to open up a little bit. That goes a little bit more into episode 2. But we're beginning to see the plot, or the plots start to flesh out of season 2. Pretty quickly in these first 2 episodes. Because they take their time in episode 1. That's part of why we did this as a double episode.
It just took 2 episodes to get everyone together.
Yeah, that's just they just took their time to do it. And that's nice because there's been 3 years of time. I love that they decided to do it 3 years later.
Same.
I think 3 years was a good amount. It's enough time for characters to change without them being so far gone that they would have changed so much. They'd still be very much impacted by what happened and sort of invented their current lives.
Yeah, the kind of time gap where, like, even if people drifted apart, it was only maybe a year or so since you saw somebody if you really hadn't seen each other that whole time.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody's still close enough. Nobody's likely to have, like, married or like moved out of the city. Certainly not, obviously, Kingston and Pete. But you know, it's a long enough time where it's too long not to have moved on, right?
Yeah.
Which they discuss, but it's not so long that you wouldn't have, that you had to have moved on, kind of thing. It was just such a perfect amount of time to give us some character evolution so that everyone can feel comfortable. And we see that all through the first 2 episodes of like them being different than what they were during Unsleeping City season 1.
So Cody comes through the house Pete's looking at. We find out that he lives there. Which is just a nice way to bring him in contact with party members that know each other. Just again lose joy at Cody's name and try hardness being introduced to Pete.
So what I like about that whole Pete Cody interaction and just Pete in that house is it's like it's such a moment where you've got like a bunch of roommates that are like a couple roommates that are fine, one that would be fine, one that's hella a problem, but like he's with one of the ones that would be fine, so like it's probably fine. I like the realism of having them be like, yeah, 5 people live in here. 2 of them are living in like a living room behind a sheet or something like that, right?
Yeah,
or dining
we're
room.
using every bit of space in this house as you do.
Yeah, as a person that was in a 2-bedroom, 1 office with 3 other roommates, so four young guys at the age of 21, 22, 23, lived together in that. We had one guy sleeping in our dining room. That absolutely functions for a while. Like, you wouldn't think it functions, but it definitely functions. And
yeah, you're at the right place in your life. You can make a lot work. And so that leads us into Cody's mall scavenging mission.
Yes.
Just fucking, I hated every second of his description of like, I kneel with my sword in front of me for a moment first. It's that like, oh,
Dark Lord. Just
like finding a stinky book. Just it being described by Brennan as a stinky book.
It's a stinky book. I love the wealth of, it's a tough era, but I'm going to call it 2002 to 2008 knowledge of what goes with that character that Murph has. It is just off the dome. The WWE references, the references to what would be in a Hot Topic or a Spencer's gift. like it's so comfortable. Like the jersey is so strong in Murph right now in Cody.
Oh God, yeah. And then his so he gets his stinky book, nat 1 perception on everything that's going on.
Page perfect.
Just pulls out a weeny, weird 4.5 foot tall Bazathrax.
Oh, Bazathrax is such a weird, screwed up little demon looking thing.
I loved in Adventuring Party, like the image that the artist came out with is as Brennan described, but was clearly not what any of the players had in mind.
Well, because how could they? Because when you think demon, even if you think lesser demon, the image of Bazathrax is not what your mind thinks. You do not think of an actual, like, fucking hamster ram horn centaur. But, like, that's what it is. Oh, so good.
Yeah. I love that because it's a giant rodent face, its art immediately made me think of a little bit of Drawfee fandom across here. There's a stream where Karina drew a logo for something, a character called Bucky, and just did it real creepy, intense lighting. And so I because it's close enough to
gives you big creepy Bucky vibes.
Yeah, big Bucky vibes on that. Big Karina drawing Bucky vibes. God, and then just, where am I? You're home.
Cody's just gonna be the delight of the season, and just literally just for Murph to dunk on himself.
Just asking if he's Lucifer and unquestionably accepting that what he says as he signs with a different name. Yeah. Just because, it doesn't ask what's your name. Just is like, are you Lucifer? Yes.
Sure.
Of course. Oh, God. Just, as my note says, such shithead comedy gold. I love Murph's work here. And so, which leads them back to, does that, sells his soul, runs back home, immediately tells Pete what happened. Just immediately. And Allie rolled really well on their perception to know that he sold his soul.
This is within the last 45 minutes, this kid is just sold his soul. I love it too, because again, the 3 years really gives you that time. Pete has been the Vox Phantasma for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Pete has had to deal with weird shit for 3 years, now sober, right? And 100%.
Well, for the last... He's only 6 months sober right now.
He's 6 months sober, but now sober in the last 6 months. But just in general.
But yeah, trying to work on sobriety while
dealing with this. And so this is not, a kid sells his soul to a demon. It's upsetting, but it's not, surprising. So Pete immediately gets to, for the first time for us seeing Pete, get to be in the role of, oh, you dumb kid.
Oh, you child, you don't even know yet. Before they get into that, we get to cut over to Iga's home and get to see her place. Mm-hmm. And that's fucking... Mishek makes me sad. That poor sick-ass little dragon.
Sick little dragon.
I cannot wait to learn more about the carved box that went nuts.
Mm-hmm. Showing off Ricky.
The description of it, of the carvings in it changing, from what it was before
in the
to
box?
now.
What is the box for?
Yeah, I loved Iga blaming the neighbors for the noise as the box is slamming around the room. Date. Yeah, and then Rick, as you mentioned, Ricky and Sophia now showing up on the box is well, fuck, I guess I gotta figure out about this. And that kind of takes us to the end of the first episode. I did have one little note from the adventuring party, which is just Monster Energy Mall Goth Murph, based off of them describing him as basically a Monster Energy Mall Goth.
What a perfect description.
So apt. And so second episode kind of warms up Ricky at his volunteering, talking about Cug with one of the people who came there for assistance, and kind of cut to Sophia trying to get her head straight after that fortune telling, and breaking up an unhappy couple.
I love that.
Yeah, the Nat 20 intimidate.
then he gets aggro and she just break his wrist.
I didn't want to do this, but you laid hands on her, then you laid hands on me, bud.
You didn't listen. I do want to bring up, because I didn't expect it in episode 2, and it may not happen now that we're kind of past the introduction and we know we're going into the first combat episode and everything like that. But I like that, on 3 different times that I can remember off the top of my head, maybe more, across the first 2 episodes, they mention, he's lightly brought up, Cugrash is still very much in the mind of the characters. And again, that's that perfect 3 years. They're not broken up when they think about it, but they're definitely still in that space where his death is...
His loss is still felt.
Yeah, it's felt. His absence is there.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was cute to see Ricky and Esther being, very sweet and supportive of Sophia, wanting to be there for her. So they catch up, do some rooftop jumping before grabbing food. Fucking Sophia's line about people you should worry about are the ones that cross my path. That immediately felt real intense at the moment. Like, Zach obviously, like, picked up on that, too. It's like, feels a little revengey.
Ricky's like, are you okay? That got real top shelf.
Next, he could also smell the, like, fight on her from earlier.
Yeah. Are you okay?
Dog senses. With in that whole scene, Sophia bringing up the ring shopping again from the previous episode. Trying to get Ricky ring shopping.
Oh god, sure.
and then that just another. They have had some unfortunate roles for lore. There's some things where Brennan's been really nice and been like, well, I'm going to describe what Cody doesn't notice. So while Cody's doing this and seeing none of it, this is what's happening. So that we as listeners at least get that. Because, like, here's another place where Emily rolled a nat 1 on her insight when talking to Esther at the end about their, like, sharing resources talk between the chantry and the monastery.
Yeah.
And so they got, like, there was some information, but, like, it was,
Yeah, they do a good job with that. That conversation, the whole dinner, all of the Sophie and Esther and Ricky bits were great. Yeah,
because at the end of that, after Sophia leaves, is when Ricky and Esther talk about giving up the questing blade, and it was a very sad conversation of Ricky acknowledging that, like, yeah, it was there, like, it never said anything useful, but it was there to talk to.
Yeah, it was a part of him. And it's a part that he can and has parted with, but that doesn't mean he doesn't miss it.
Yeah.
That was very sweet. I also just love Ricky discussing the book that he's reading, the YA fiction or whatever. Shit. The Dan Brown meets YA fiction book that Ricky would read for a year.
Yeah, so between the episode description on Dropout and, like, this scene, I really thought that Ricky might be getting the questing blade back from Dale at, like, the end of the episode or something. That's where I was kind of, like, guessing it would get, and I still think it might be going that direction.
Well, yeah, because of course they give us a scene with Dale and Sophia.
Yep, that's the very next scene is like made my ass tear up. I think cried a little bit the first time, and I teared up again listening to it on the rewatch.
Yeah, it's deeply sad, and it's a great acknowledgement. And the thing that makes me not as sad watching it is the recognition of Emily as a player on what this is going to be, and the prayer that they have as a player that their poor character just doesn't know it, and then the dice roll the way that they want them.
She rolls like a 9. It's just like, oh, that was a beautiful night.
Yeah, and it's like obviously Dale's recognizing that this can't continue with either of them this way.
Yeah, like there's so much foreshadowing, and as viewers, like, we know we're watching something end.
Yeah, we're watching. We got the gift almost of, like, the idea that for the past few years they have been able to see each other.
Mm-hmm. But, like, their conversation and, like, the very clear realization and sadness of realizing that neither one of them is enjoying where they're at. He doesn't get to enjoy heaven, and she doesn't get to enjoy being alive as long as they're together like this.
Yeah.
And just, and how the kind of, like, bitterness, frustration with relationship things that she kind of had growing, and that this kind of illuminating that, like, yeah, it keeps being longer and longer between times that she sees him, and there is never any knowledge of when or if it's going to be again. And so, like, at this point, it's been 6 weeks since the last time he got out. Yeah. Which means it was probably, like, a month, like, before the time before that.
What do they follow that scene with? How do they break the tension of that scene?
the only way that they could by cutting to Cody.
Of course.
Yeah, no, I was literally, my note, so glad they cut to Cody after that.
Because I know Brennan. I know he's always looking. He's like, I'm going to give you those emotions, but this is a comedy show. So we're going to bring you back up from it real quick.
Yeah, we need a strong hit to get us back from where we went.
And Cody is all of the taurine and caffeine you could ever need to get you back in.
Is
that the one where Cody goes to the hospital to meet King? What's
no, that's later. So this is like, you know, seems to be like right after him coming home, basically, like the next morning or something. Having to roll to see if he even had taken the booking contract, because they never addressed that.
Of course.
So Brennan's like, look, it's a low DC.
It's a 5, I think is what he made it.
Yeah.
But, like, anyone would have probably done it, but...
Yeah. Actually, honestly, Allie's story rolls have been what we need them to be, because Allie rolled a 27 here.
Oh, yeah, this is where Pete meets... This is where Pete meets the...
Shortly.
Yeah.
Shortly.
Bathroom.
This is just, so with that 27, Pete knows about Bazathrax and that he's just bullshit, and that it basically gives some more insight that, yes, Highway Hex is still there. Bazathrax, Isabella are basically the biggest things from hell that could possibly get through. Isabella used to be the only thing here since she died. Now it's just Bazathrax, which means that he can clean up. It's a huge city and no one else from hell is there trying to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to kind of get that lore, a little bit of reminder. And so then Pete just fills Cody in on what the fuck is up, because he's like, because Cody asked him something and that's when Pete was like, can I tell him too much, like everything? I just tell him everything. But that was cool to see, because that in and of itself is huge growth from Pete. Just opening up and trying to catch Cody up without trying to hide stuff from him, compared to Pete of season 1, constantly, all secrets.
All lies. Pete of season 2, he's like, let's just get you up to speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then Pete has Cody summon Bazathrax, fucking failing to summon him the first time and stabbing himself because he refuses to believe it's not Lucifer, and then just repeating the same exact thing, stabbing himself again.
It's very good. Very, very satisfying. The moment, I love the take chargeness of the moment, like, Pete, Bazathrax appears and everything, and Pete's just like, we're done with fuck around time.
Well, because then he rolled Pete's 28 intimidate against Bazathrax. Because Brendan was like, roll initiative, and Allie's like, not intimidate? And so I was like, no, okay, yeah, roll intimidate. And Allie rolled a 28.
And so I think it was like Bazathrax pinned against a wall or something.
Yeah, like the wall melted and kind of sucked him in a bit.
Yeah, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing here? Just no nonsense. And it's that real, it's that growth.
I'm sorry.
It's that growth that you've been talking about. Like, Pete is so much more in charge of everything around them.
Oh yeah, so much more control over his powers and understanding of himself.
And confident that he is a character. And Allie plays Pete so like appropriately appropriately as someone who's been in it for years now and knows it, and so can immediately identify with that quality lore and with their history. This is a low-level demon. I've killed low-level demons before. I'm not worried about this demon.
Yeah.
You need to tell me what the fuck is happening.
Yeah, which is like something that Brennan addresses, that like the fact that they're kind of at an impasse power-wise, because he can't possibly, he is so much weaker than Pete is, but at the same time, all Pete can really do is send him back to hell.
Yeah, you can't kill him.
Yeah. So they have to reach a compromise eventually.
Yeah.
But just immediately Cody's disappointment. Can I sell my soul to Pete? And then just being still though being so into having his soul sold, and like just trying to find a way to like talk it up or make it sound cool, and Allie just being like he like stocks the vending machines of hell, and Cody just Bazathrax being like, oh, I wish it's a cushy job, and Cody just being like, yeah, you could do that, just like being supportive of his shitty demon
I think he's a demon
boss. Yeah. Yeah, which it's so good. I loved every bit of those interactions. And then we got some more actual lore, learning about the anti-populi showing up in the sewers that someone like Cug would have caught, but because none of them are down in the sewers, it's just been growing unchecked down there.
Yep.
And so then they start. Was there anything around that interaction?
When they talk about the anti-populi, I mean, obviously that's tying into the Vox Populi's piece that you talked about earlier.
So there's other stuff that happens before then.
Yeah, but you brought up worrying about Kingston, and I personally think that is directly related. Continue.
I hadn't honestly thought about that yet, but I think you're absolutely right. That much anti-populi in the city, he's very clear that coming into close contact with it can make you sick, can hurt you. Mm-hmm. And him being the Vox Populi, having that much built up in the city, he is the personification
of how the city's supposed to work. And so if too much of it isn't working that way, then it weakens him.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes further into we should just discuss this now because we're in it. Right as they're getting toward the end of this episode, we'll go back and fill in the piece between. But at the end of this episode, when things are beginning to blink, and some of like the magic, the unsleepiness of the Unsleeping City begins to fail, I have a feeling that the anti-populi, whether a cause of or a symptom of, is sort of the destruction. I have a theory about what the plot is of this entire Unsleeping City Season 2, which is sort of the deconstruction of New York's vibe and classic New York, and what makes New York special being the separation of it from the fifth borough or sixth borough. Is that what they call it? The sixth borough? Nod.
I think so.
Yeah. Being a further separation of the land of dreaming and Nod, a further reduction of magic, and an actualization of why there's not unsleeping cities in every town. And everywhere New York is special because of its history, its lore, and kind of what it is unique. And the less unique that becomes with places like Gladiator coming in and turning it more to kind of like a sprawling, light commercial, industrial suburb instead of an actual city. The less connection it has, both to its identity outside of magic and its identity inside of magic. And I think that's where it's going. That's my theory. So that's how that all connects.
I guess that at bare minimum parts of that are true.
Yeah, but the Vox Populi and the Anti-Populi have to be connected. Anyway, wherever we were just after Pete
Yeah.
And
So this is where the team starts slowly coming together at this point. Ricky and Sophia are already hanging. Ika gets a hold of Sophia to meet up. Pete and Cody already know that they need to go get a hold of Kingston.
Yeah.
I just love the mental image of Pete dragging Bazathrax around, just like a piece of shit while Cody's watching, like the person he sold his soul to.
Just being like, I sold my. This was a bad bet. This was a bad bet.
I didn't even really just when they're talking about his contract. This is the worst contract you've ever seen.
This is absolutely the worst one.
So he clearly got lightheaded because he signed out the full name Night Angel.
Yeah.
Just the line. I had friends at PacSun, even though I don't like the sun. Fucking kills me inside. Yeah, I can't remember now which of the cast asked it, but I am so happy that someone asked what Bazathrax looks like to other people. It might have been Murph, but because of Umbral Arcana, he's not gonna look like Bazathrax. And Brennan's description that he looks like sad, sagging, satanic balloons. Just so delightful. Yeah, so then Cody and Pete meet up with Kingston in his secret hospital room. Just Pete needing to tell himself that Bazathrax conned him into it. Bazathrax telling the truth, just no, I didn't have to do anything, Pete. I need to believe that you conned him. Brennan's commitment to keeping his arms up when playing Bazathrax, when he was still being held by Pete.
Lou's just a throwaway line. Just this sort of that classic observant improv and comedy sketch acting awareness of looking at Murph, who has at no point said in that scene that Cody is smoking a cigarette, but is physically holding his hand up while talking like Cody, like he has a cigarette in his hand, and having Kingston say, "Hey, there's no smoking in here." Fuck. And he puts it out. I love that moment because it is such an exact, it's such a you're living in the world moment, like a real moment where it's at a tabletop, people might not notice this or think about it. But this group has role played so much together and is so comfortable and is coming back to characters they've been, that Lou is so comfortable as Kingston. He is Kingston in those moments, and if he sees someone smoking, he's going to tell them to put that.
Well, so I get that there's the arguable difference between smoke and vape smoke, but they clarified that they were in the secret room that Kingston let Alejandro just vape away in. Or I couldn't remember if he was vaping in there or smoking his pipe. I'm pretty sure he was vaping in there.
I think he was vaping.
But still.
They had the conversation about the vaping in the room, and Alejandro is not some kid from the mall.
I know. I know there's a difference, but I still love it. He's no, not at all. Not you. Cody just trying to get Bazathrax to hide because he's embarrassed.
I'll just summon you out.
Or just you stay hidden. I'll just say that I am the emissary of the Dark Lord, and just stay hidden. God, I fucking loved Allie's idea to turn Bazathrax into a tattoo. Since Brennan, said that they could imprison him inside Cody. So the very second that he said that, my mind went back to that image that I had of Bazathrax in Karina's creepy art of just like that big Bucky head's creepy art style as the tattoo on Cody. And in my heart, that is what I always think of, even though he instead got a tattoo that he absolutely fucking loves.
Yeah. What does it say? Like redemption?
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Just like a new metal font. Oh god, and then him having to talk out loud to Bazathrax.
I love it so much. The Bazathrax talks in his head, but the connection isn't there yet for him to be able to mind talk back.
Well, as Brennan said, you just don't know how to, so you have to talk out loud. It's not like he then asked Bazathrax how to do it silently.
That's not how Cody did.
Yeah, it was very good. Then Ricky and Sophia scoop Iga on the way to everyone else.
You have to meet Iga's husband again.
Yeah, brief. Well, it was early before she left the house. Yeah. Just being adorable and supportive, just like, you do whatever it is you do.
I don't need to know about it. I love you. Bring me back food.
Not even bring me back food. She's the one that offers, and he's like, hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this. Thanks.
And so Ricky and Sophia scoop Iga. We learn a bit more about the box having been passed down to daughters throughout Iga's lineage through the ages. That's very old and meant never to be opened. Iga, very briefly, I don't know if this is like something Brennan will latch onto and do something with, but Iga offhand mentions that one of her aunts, when she was very young, had, and she disappeared.
Yeah, hopefully. It's one of those kinds of things
that Brennan would hold on to.
Yeah, it's that Brennan could hold on to.
Mm-hmm. And then as soon as everyone gets together and Cody starts going off, Pete just mind-linking and explaining to everyone what's actually happening.
Oh, it's so good.
So that's when Kingston has the sharp pain in his chest. We kind of talked about that. Hope Pete follows up on it. Brennan, so we're basically at the end of the episode now. Brennan starts voicing all the anti-populi, shitty subway rider voices things.
Yeah.
Just this is a bad train.
It's a bad train.
I'm excited.
I'm especially excited to see what they do, because we get to go to our first Roll20 episode and battle map.
Yep, see all the art that they got organized for it.
Yeah, different little tokens, the battle maps, the things that they can do that, like they can use the fog of war functionality on Roll20.
I really hope they did a little behind the scenes on the making of this, and there's some like outtakes of the gang learns to use Roll20.
Well, for the players, it's really useful and easy. For the DM, it can take a little bit. The learning curve's there. But again, they had what's his name, Carlos, who was of course in their side quest for Pirates of Leviathan. Carlos works. I can't remember what his title is, but works with /for Roll20. Might be more involved than works. I honestly haven't done the research, but he's their main Roll20. They admit he's their main Roll20 contact. And so that's cool to have like a coach and a mentor there. But yeah, watching Kingston get hurt, like visibly, like not necessarily hit points harmed, but harmed.
Yep.
Is worrying.
Especially because he's hiding it from people. Because
nothing can happen to Kingston Brown from uptown. I don't want that. to be an arc this season. I don't want my Kingston to go away. He only just recently found peace and happiness.
That's
Admittedly,
true. But even if he does pass, at least he got to find peace and happiness. I don't wish that to happen.
I admittedly, the whole reason I love Unsleeping City is because it is able to open that up.
That's all I got.
That is all I have. I already gave my theory for the big plot, which is that Gladiator is partially destroying New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be your evil faction, if you will. I want to know what's in the box.
I want to know what's in that box.
It's in the box. I want to know what's in the box. I'm excited for this will go up, Tuesday? So tomorrow's episode to see combat.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tomorrow's episode to see combat. And that's all I got. Happy to be doing these again. God damn it. I'm so happy they came back to Unsleeping City. I was not prepared.
I was always like, I know that they of course could do it, but I was always real curious at how they would come at trying to do a second season.
Since the first was so complete.
And I'm very happy so far. I'm very excited to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening. Go follow the fan artists who are featured in this video. You can find their social media and prescribed links in the description. But until next time.